Welcome back to Noir Alley. I'm your host, Eddie Muller. Do I look familiar to you? Have you ever seen me before? What about this place, Bar 355 in Oakland, California? You ever been here before? Now, I'm not trying to confound you, I'm just getting you ready for today's film, The Crooked Way, an independently produced crime drama released by United Artists in 1949. It is yet another film noir with a protagonist suffering from amnesia. This time, John Payne plays the World War II vet who returns home with battle injuries that have erased his memory. You've seen this plot several times on Noir Alley. A couple of weeks ago, Robert Taylor had amnesia in MGM's High Wall. William Bendix had the foggy frontal lobes in 1946's The Blue Dahlia, made at Paramount. Bill Williams was a non-compos mentis sailor in RKO's The Clay Pigeon, which came out only 2 months after The Crooked Way. John Hodiak and Robert Cummings were similarly afflicted in Somewhere in the Night and The Chase, both awaiting their Noir Alley debuts. And there are more. Obviously, the producers and writers of these films were counting on audiences and critics suffering from short-term memory loss as well, since all these movies were released within months of each other. Memory loss was an irresistible hook for writers of mysteries because they got a protagonist not only trying to solve the twists and turns of the plot, they're also trying to figure out who they really are. And that's the premise of today's tale, in which Eddie Riccardi, the war hero played by John Payne, returns to Los Angeles only to gradually learn that before his military service, he'd been following the Crooked Way. He may feel like a stranger in town and to himself, but he's quickly recognized by the cops, as well as an old flame played by Ellen Drew and a shifty gangster played by Sonny Tufts. Originality was not the hallmark of producer Benedict Beaujeu. All independent producers go broke sooner or later, he once said. It's because they try to make artistic pictures. I make commercial ones. It pays off. Beaujeu was a self-made businessman who'd earned and lost a couple of fortunes before arriving in Hollywood in 1940. He became a player by acquiring General Service Studios. Built in 1919, it was the oldest independent facility in Hollywood, where many classics had been shot over the years. The profit he made leasing the facility enabled Beaujeu to start his own production company in 1944, turning out pictures as disparate as Mr. Ace with George Raft and Diary of a Chambermaid, directed by Jean Renoir. By 1949, Hollywood's dark tide had crested, with more noir released in those 12 months than during any other year. Beaujeu wasn't going to let the trend pass without making one of his own. He bought the radio play No Blade Too Sharp by Robert Monroe and had journeyman writer Richard Landau turn it into a screenplay. To direct, he hired old hand Robert Florey, who'd been making films since the silent era. Perhaps I should call him Robert Florey, since he was born in Paris and began his career there as a film reviewer. He came to Hollywood in the early 20s to write about the business, but decided to work in it instead, steadily advancing from being a gag writer to becoming a valued director at Universal during the advent of sound. A jack of all genres, Florey spent most of his career as a freelancer, often working for indie producers like Ben Beaujeu. Freelancing was also the career strategy of the most valuable contributor to The Crooked Way, cinematographer John Alton. The highlight of this film is seeing Alton blend his fantastic on-location footage of Los Angeles with his always dramatic interior lighting. Alton seems particularly enamored with lead actress Ellen Drew, giving her plenty of luminous close-ups, including the sparkling kick light in the eyes that was one of his trademarks. John Payne had made the transition to being a tough guy only the year before, but the transition would be permanent. He'd headlined some of the best noir films of the 1950s. Also starring Sonny Tufts and noir's favorite homunculus, Percy Helton, Here is the Noir Alley premiere of The Crooked Way.